The Beast of Blackwater Lake. I'll never forget that summer, the summer I turned 18, and went camping with my best friends at Blackwater Lake. A decision that would change my life forever and make me question everything I thought I knew about the world. It started out as the perfect trip, 5 guys celebrating our last summer before college by getting away from it all in the deep woods of northern Minnesota. We drove over 300 miles from our little suburb outside the Twin Cities to a remote campground on the shores of Blackwater Lake. It was an idyllic spot, surrounded by thick pine forests, with the shimmering black waters stretching out before us. The first few days were a blast. We went hiking, fishing, canoeing on the lake, and spent the nights drinking beer around the campfire, shooting the shit and dreaming about our futures. Little did we know the horrors that lay ahead. It was our 4th night there when the weirdness began. I woke up sometime after midnight, my throat parched from too many cheap lagers. I unzipped my tent and stepped out into the cool night air, figuring I'd grab a bottle of water from the nearby lake. As I approached the shoreline, I noticed a bizarre fog drifting just above the inky black surface. It seemed unnatural, too thick and too low, to just be mist coming off the water. I froze in my tracks, suddenly getting a weird vibe when I heard something. A faint splashing sound, like something was moving through the water. Peering closer, through the fog, I could have sworn I saw a large shape briefly break the surface before disappearing again under the murkiness. My heart started pounding as I backed away slowly, unsure of what I had witnessed. I hurried back to the tent, deciding not to mention it to the guys yet. Probably just my mind, playing tricks after too many ghost stories around the campfire. But I couldn't shake this deep feeling of dread that had settled in my gut. The next day, everything seemed normal. We went about our typical camp activities, swimming, hiking, screwing around like idiots as always. But that night, I heard the strange sounds again. Splashing and haunting cries that didn't seem to be made by any normal animal. This time, Jake and Chris heard them too and came out of their tents to investigate with me. We saw the bizarre ground fog again, thicker than the previous night, completely obscuring our view of the lake. "What the hell is that noise?" Jake asked, his voice tense. That's when we all saw it. A huge, shadowy form, sleek and serpentine, undulated across the surface, barely visible through the fog. Its enormous body effortlessly propelled itself across the length of the lake before disappearing into the dark tree-line on the opposite shore. We stood there in stunned silence, trying to process what we had just witnessed. Finally, Chris spoke up in a shaky voice. "You guys, please tell me I'm not crazy, and you saw that too." We decided to pack up and leave first thing in the morning. Whatever that thing was, we didn't want to stick around any longer to find out. I've never seen my buddies so scared in all the years I've known them. When daylight finally came, we broke down camp in record time, keeping constant watch over the still lake. Too unnerved to even consider getting breakfast. Our minds were made up. Whatever had been in those woods and waters, we weren't going to hang around to encounter it again. We hit the road right after sunrise, the 5-hour drive home, feeling far more tense than the trip up there had been. Nobody said much, each of us still processing what we had seen. If only we knew at the time, we should have just kept driving and never looked back. Over the next couple of weeks, I tried to convince myself it had just been some sort of weird, camping delusion brought on by too much heat, beer, and lack of sleep. a combination of shadows, fog, and overactive imaginations. Maybe it had just been a couple of big fish or something. Anything to rationalize away what I had witnessed. Then the news reports started coming in. A string of grisly deaths around Blackwater Lake that seemed too horrific to be the work of a bear or wolf. The first was a man found washed up on the shore, his body horribly mangled with massive gouging wounds and bite marks. His intestines had been ripped out and shredded. His face was frozen in a look of sheer terror. Over the next few days, several more victims in the same area would turn up dead. A couple of hikers, a little girl playing by the shore, even a park ranger went missing, with only blood-stained shreds of his clothing found. While the local authorities worked on the grisly murder investigations, some sort of wild conspiracy theories started swirling about an ancient, deep-dwelling lake monster being behind the attacks. The Native American name Blackwater was theorized to refer to the blackish, oily appearance of the lake when this creature would rise from the depths and bring chaos. I tried to brush it off at first. Those were the ramblings of crackpots, sensationalist reporters, and online freaks with too much free time. Right? There was no way such a thing could be real. Then the images and video evidence started surfacing online, and everything changed. Screenshots and shaky camera footage from the late-night attack scenes. All of them showing that same, undeniable serpentine shape, slithering across the inky black lake surface, far too massive to be any known creature. Visuals that matched exactly what Jake, Chris, and I had witnessed merely weeks earlier at the campground. Denial was no longer an option. That thing out there was real. And we had stupidly slept just yards away from its lair for days on end. I've struggled with night terrors, panic attacks, and PTSD symptoms ever since. The trauma of knowing such an unholy, primordial monster lurks in the depths of a place I once viewed as a peaceful oasis has shaken me to my core. Sometimes I'll wake up in a cold sweat, horrific visions of being dragged down into those murky depths filling my mind. I hear the deafening splashes, feel the powerful jaws clamping down around my body, shredding me to pieces as the darkness of Blackwater swallows me completely. Even as I'm writing this account, my hands are shaking at the memories. I'll forever be haunted by the existence of the Blackwater Lake monster. That unstoppable force of annihilating evil, patiently waiting in the black depths for its next unwitting victims to stray too close. I've tried reaching out to wildlife authorities, scientists, anybody, to further investigate this or explain it all rationally. But the evidence keeps mounting of an aquatic predator like nothing modern science can identify living in those ancient waters. A vicious, higher life form unbound by the ecological rules we understand. So I beg you all, if you ever find yourselves near the woodlands of northern Minnesota and come across the ominous Blackwater Lake, turn around. Don't let your curiosity get the better of you, as mine did. Never set foot near its inky blackness. Never set eyes upon the Leviathan dwelling within. For if you do catch but a glimpse of the terrifying beast's true form, you'll forever be haunted by its obscene, eldritch horror as I am. And you may never make it out alive once you've fallen under the hypnotic spell of the Blackwater.